What if the story inside you is the story that someone else needs to help them move to the next level of their life? What if your story is the one that is desperately needed in the world? Well, today I am excited to bring to you authors who have either published their books already or they're in the middle of publishing. No, let me correct that. They're at the end of publishing their books. They are a part of the writer's journey as well as the author's academy. And so they will be sharing with you their stories by answering a question that I will be asking each of them, and they will show you that there are no excuses, no reason to have excuses when it's time for you to write your story. They will be the ones that are helping you to have no excuses when it comes to telling your stories and writing your books. Before you meet them, let me just say we are actually live in front of our Writer's Journey community. And I want to invite you to stay connected with us during the week. You can do that by going to phyllisjenkins.com and signing up for our weekly newsletters. We also have our YouTube channel that you can stay connected with us, receive inspiration, as well as the Writer's Journey, the community that I just mentioned to you. So let's not delay. Let's keep moving forward as we bring our authors before you. Our first author is Sheila Orr. Sheila, if you would unmute. And my question for Sheila is, what inspired you to write your book? And when did you know, Sheila, that it was time for you to write it?
Good evening. Name of my book's G Mama's Affirmations. The reason I wrote that, well, I didn't write it as a book. It started out as me writing to my grandbabies because when I would talk to them, they would always give me the same answers. I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. So after a while, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to help you add to your vocabulary and build your identity besides saying I'm good. So that's how I started writing those affirmations, was to build my grandbabies' identity through words and to help them to build their vocabulary by saying a different word every week in and everything, to retrain their mind and their thoughts about how they see themselves and how they feel about themselves, and to help them to see themselves the way God sees them. And what inspired me to do it, I was, after 2 years of writing those affirmations, I was going to delete them because they was just filling up my phone. And my husband, he's always coming up with something. He said, "Why don't you just put them in a book?" I said, "Sweetie, this is not a book. It's just something that the Lord put on my heart to stay in touch with the grandbabies." He said, "Well, you don't know, you might could put it in a book." So I got in contact with Miss Phyllis, and she interviewed me, and I read a couple of them to her, and she said, "Yeah, you can put those in a book." And I'm like, "Really?" I said, "Because I don't really see it as a book, because like I tell people when they buy my book, which I sold 17 yesterday, and
Right.
I tell them, I said, my book is not a book that you sit down and read. It's a book that you sit down, read, and say for a whole week. So that's the difference in my book and all the other authors' book, is you just don't sit down and read it. You sit down, read it, and say it for a whole week, and then you begin a new week with a new saying. And so it's retraining your mind and your thoughts about yourself to help you see yourself the way God sees you, so that when some negative things come against you, especially with children, if they're being bullied and being called different things, then that way they know how to respond to bullies. When they call them something, they can respond and tell them, "I am a winner. I am a masterpiece. I am amazing. I am awesome," instead of them feeling bad about themselves and receiving what someone else said about them.
Absolutely. And let me tell y'all, when Sheila starts reading her affirmations in our class, all of us are on fire. She might have written this for her grandkids, but Everybody who gets this book, you're going to be so happy her husband encouraged her to move forward and write the book. Thank you, Sheila. And we're so excited about your published book and selling 17 today. You know, I don't have my pom-poms here. You know, I would be cheering you on right now.
Yes, and my husband on the road, every time he goes somewhere, I just sold three more of your books. And he
Wonderful.
went to South Carolina. I just sold two more books. And he
Love it.
loves going in the store and he'll ask people. He can't wait to get up to the cash register. Usually he want to go to the self-check. But now he goes to the cash register. He said, "How y'all doing today?" And he just wait for him. And he said, "No, you see, you said the wrong answer." He said, "Let me help you. My wife just wrote this book to help you to say who you are and say it better when somebody asks you something. So here's a picture of it. Take a picture of it on Amazon so you can order this book. So next time I see you and I ask you how you doing, you know how to respond the right way instead of just saying anything." I'm like, okay.
He's your best marketing piece. So we're going to move over to Miss Humble Essence. Humble, your question is, did you ever battle self-doubt or fear while writing? Did you ever battle self-doubt or fear while writing, and did you push through?
So actually, I battled both. The self-doubt was mainly, this is your first time writing and becoming an author. How do you start? Um, how do you articulate it? How do you be an honorable author? How do you talk about your marriage? How do you talk about the lies? And how do you talk about how you're liberated? So it was a lot of question marks. So I definitely had a lot of self-doubt. Um, there was quite a bit of fear. I didn't want to hurt or harm anybody in the process of writing about something so personal and intimate, where I basically had to mention perhaps a name or a situation that was very near and dear. So, yeah, quite a bit of fear while writing. Um, what helped me overcome it? I learned something during this entire process, which was something called ants. And when we think about ants, we think about the little red ants that are busy. And sometimes we have like thoughts that are like automatic negative thoughts in our head. And so I had to acknowledge those feelings, but also remember that God gave you permission to write this story, write this book. You know what your intentions are, and that you want to make the world a better place if you can, because sometimes it only takes one person. And if I'm that one person, I'm gonna be that one person. So that's what pushed me through.
Wow, love that. If I'm going to be that one person, it's going to be Humble. She's moving forward with her book, and I love that, and I know, Humble, that you just encourage someone else by sharing your answer. So thank you so much, and we look forward to reading your book as well.
Thank
All
you.
right, let's move over to Miss Laveda. And Laveda's question is, how did you make time to write, especially with all of life's responsibilities?
Well, for me, I typically write in small increments. And for example, if I have a lot going on in my life, I tend to wake up in the wee hours of the morning, say about 3 a.m. And I made the choice not to look at the ceiling, but to grab my phone and either make notes in my memo section or voice memos. And that way I get all my ideas and thoughts out of my head and onto my phone. And then I can go back to sleep, right? And that way, when I get up the next morning, which is usually before breakfast, I'll start to gather those things I put on my phone and I'll type them up or put them on my computer and massage them a little bit and print it out. And then I'll stick that in a book somewhere and go on about my day. And that way, the next time I get ready to write, everything's there in one neat little pile. So that's kind of what I do for each story, each chapter, and ultimately each book. All of them are done in small increments that way. Mhm,
Wow.
mhm.
What a great tip for many people who are listening. And your book ended up being how many pages?
204. Yes, ma'am.
So do y'all see that she did it in small increments? And she ended up with a book with over 200 pages and a wonderful book. Indeed, it is. So, thank you for sharing that. And again, for those who are watching, who are listening, you can do it too in small increments. Thank you, Laveda.
You're welcome.
Let's move over to Van. Van's question is, was there ever a moment, Van, that you wanted to quit? And if so, what kept you going? We know that you're saying some marvelous things, so I want you to unmute so that we can hear you.
Hey.
There you are.
So, the question was, was I ever thinking about quitting and giving up? Yes, I did several times think about quitting and giving up. For me to start something and complete it, it is very rewarding for me. And my story, as I began to write my story, and as I began to get deeper and deeper involved with organizations that serve children within foster care, that kept me going. The different things that I was exposed to it with these organizations, that kept me going. I know that I know that this story needs to be heard. Some of the children that I deal with need to hear this story in order to continue to grow and not just give up and quit and have grit. So that is the reason. That is what kept me. That is what led me to complete my story.
I love that. And what Van is actually saying is that her why was greater than the fear, greater than the doubt that would have stumbled or distracted her from continuing to write. So, Van, thank you so much for sharing that. We all look forward to reading your book as well. Let's move over now to, let's see, Miss Kai. Kai, if you would unmute, and Kai, your question is, what advice would you give to someone who feels that they have a story inside, but they haven't started writing yet?
Hmm. Well, this question is pretty near and dear to my heart because and you mentioned this in one of the other questions about all of life's responsibilities. So, full-time job, wife, you might be a parent. So you have this story, you want to get it out there. What do you do? So some of the things that I started with was just collecting story seeds. So I took a notebook around with me or had my phone and I jotted down observations. I jotted down snippets of dialogue that I found interesting that reminded me of something from my story that I was thinking about. Character ideas, things that reminded me of my story. And never, ever, ever did I think about, oh, let me start editing, or let me start thinking about what I can make perfect. So you just want to go to town. I also think about fractures and fragments. So snippets of things that you recall, snippets of things that you want to see in your book play out. And it might come out as a few words, it might come out as a dialogue. It might come out as an observation. You just write that down without even judging yourself, without critiquing yourself, but you just want to keep that running log. And like I said, if you want to do it digitally, if you want to do it on in a journal, you just start collecting what I call like story seeds. Another thing that I did was morning pages. So when I would wake up in the morning, I would write a couple of pages or a couple of paragraphs. Sometimes it wasn't pages, a couple of things that are right there on my brain before I get started with my day and before I start going down all the things that it involves. But something that I knew right away I was going to be fresh that morning. The third thing that I could think of is that you might want to free write. So set a timer for yourself at a certain point of time during the day and just write continuously for that amount of time. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, and just write continuously, open-ended, and just free write. It could be specific elements about a character. It might be elements about a setting. It might be snippets of dialogue that you remember, but just write without stopping and write without editing and judging yourself and saying, oh, maybe I should do this instead of that. Just get it all down on a piece of paper and just keep that running log. The other thing I can think about is read authors that you like, things that you like, where you feel like your book would live, whatever genre it would live in. Read more about that particular author. It might be a poet, it might be a novelist, and things that you really, really admire about that particular author. And maybe it will spur you to kind of think about the way in which you want to structure your piece. But I would say at this beginning stage, as you just want to get things down on the page, things that strike you. The other thing that I would think about is perhaps you recall a mood board creation. So you could collect quotes, you could collect images. So images were really big for me, photos and things that would kind of inspire me to write certain things. So maybe it's music, maybe it's quotes or lyrics that get you to think about your piece. And go ahead and write those things down. So anything that's going to evoke that feeling of a story, anything that's going to evoke memory, if you're writing in memoir, anything that's going to like inspire you to get those words on a page. And don't worry about structure, don't worry about form, don't worry about spell check. Just get it down and
Absolutely
freely. Yeah.
love that, Kai. Thank you so much. And what Kai is summarizing for us is what we call a brain dump. Just empty and just write, as she said, and no editing. Don't try to do any of that at the moment. I love the story seeds because when we think about a seed is going to grow. And so these stories have grown into books, books that will be here for generation after generation after generation. So, Kai, thank you so much for sharing. And we look forward to reading your book as well. All right, let's move over to, and before we move to Ella, let me say that those of you who are in the writer's journey, I hope you're taking notes because once we finish this recording, we are going to discuss what resonated with you the most. What are you learning from these authors that you can pick up and help you to move on to complete your book, your stories as well. All right, Ella, how did writing and publishing your book, and I should say books, because this is at least number three for Ella, but how did writing and publishing your book transform your life personally or professionally or both?
Thank you so much, Phyllis. So, in so many ways, but specifically, it's just that voice and power that he gave me. And that's because when I say voice and power, giving a voice to my experience and seeing that other people's lives are being transformed totally made me realize that God has a plan in our experiences, that no matter what we've been through, when we give it to Him, we can birth purpose out of it. So that's the biggest one for me, that inner transformation, that identity restored, and seeing people's lives change. I would hear feedback of other people who read it and say, oh, I couldn't say anything. I was ashamed, to talk about it. I read your story and how you're caring for your children, your healing. And that really gave me, I didn't always think that it was God's plan for us as women to be powerful, and so especially when you've been through abuse, it takes away your confidence, it takes away your self-worth. And so just sharing that story and letting people know how God transformed my heart, that He can transform your heart and totally give you a new heart, that changed everything for me. And of course, professionally, just writing my books has given me that credibility. It has given me that platform to speak to mostly women, and even now God is opening the door for men. So I'm speaking to men and children now, which is something I never thought was part of the package. So it has totally given me that visibility, it's given me credibility and that platform to be authentic and transparent, to let people know that if I made it to the other side, you can too. So that's been a great blessing to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ella. And I love what you said, that it helped, writing that book helped lead to your purpose. And many of you can testify to that. Many of you authors that are here now can see how you telling your story, writing your book has definitely led to your purpose, but not just your purpose, as Ella said, your platform as well. And her platform is growing, and we look forward, Ella, to seeing how God is going to continue to expand your territory and open up many doors for you and for every author on here as well. Let's move over to Miss Jackie. And Jackie has published her book number 2 as well. And so, Jackie, my question for you is, if you could go back and tell your pre-published self one thing, what would it be?
Well, the one thing I would tell myself is, girl, how you gonna write a book? You're gonna need some help, and you're gonna need God to help you. And that's how I did it. I don't know if I put him to the test and he just showed me you don't know who you're dealing with, and put the words in my head and put them on paper, and I'm published. And with book number 2.
Book number 2.
And all I can say is thank you, Jesus. As a matter of fact, my postal carrier bought 9 books from me this past Friday. She bought 8 of my old book, no, 8 of my new books and 1 of my old books. But she had already bought 4 of my old books. But she said she knows someone who's going through a divorce, and she wanted an old book, and she bought 8 new books. So I've sold 29 new books since Wednesday.
That is amazing. And I know
God just keeps showing me.
you're probably approaching 600 at least for the old book. And now
I'm over 700.
oh, over 700.
Yes, I'm close to 800, I think.
And did y'all hear what she said? She sold it to her postal carrier. No one, everyone that comes in your site should know about your book, your story, your why. And because everyone knows someone who probably falls into that category. So, Jackie, thank you so very much. Our last question, but certainly not our least, is for Miss Tenu. Tenu, if you would unmute, please. And our question for Tenu is, what message do you hope your book will leave with readers? So if you would share with everyone, Tenu, the title of your book, and share what message you hope that all of your readers walk away with.
Thank you very much. The title of my book is Unwanted Pages That Have Become God's Glory. And the message I have, at first, is just for widows. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought everybody needs to concentrate on God and realize that whatever we do, the decision we take, day by day, our actions day by day, they constitute the pages in the history of our lives. And when you take decisions that lead to action that you are not proud of, they become the unwanted pages of your life.
I want to say that we are super excited about your book, and I had a little technical difficulty there, so some of your message might not have been recorded. And if that's the case, I'm going to meet with you one-on-one and we're going to get that message out because it is so very important. But I just want to say thank you to each of the authors today for sharing your whys and your struggles and your victories and most of all being willing to help those that are coming behind you who are writing their books as well. So let me just say to everyone watching that you have a story inside of you. There are no excuses for you not to move forward. You've heard how our authors have shared how if even if they wanted to quit, they kept on. They found ways to continue to write until they had their book published. And as I always say, don't take your story to the grave.
Mm.
This is Phyllis Jenkins. I am super excited to have you here with us, and we look forward to seeing you again. Remember to stay connected with us during the week. Go to phyllisjenkins.com, and we will stay connected. Bye-bye.